delegate in the Israeli delegation. Myself, I'm a professor of ecology, conservation, and sustainability at Ben Gurion University in Israel, and I work on biodiversity and conservation for many years. And I have really the pleasure to be here today and stand in front of you and share with you some of our exciting processes or exciting initiative in the last year. And this is mainly about a new index, the first international country-based uh, nature conservation index. And this is the one that can serve for many purposes, governments, organizations, private people, academia, and so on. So it's a great pleasure to be here. And we're going to have actually two parts to this presentation. The first one will be presented by my colleague and friend, Asaf Levy. And unfortunately, he could not come. He is in Israel, so I'm going to present the recording presentation. We see his face now on the screen. And Asaf is a high-tech expert. He is not coming from biology. Maybe this is his advantage. And he got in love, and he found it very important to conserve biodiversity. And I wish we had more people like that coming from different directions. And Asaf established a new website, which is called BioDB. So first, for about 15 minutes, Asaf will present his own BioDB website, which is very visual, amazing website that presents the status of many species on Earth. And we developed together the index that is now nested within his website, the BioDB. So what I will do now, I will switch to the recording presentation of Asaf. He will describe his website, and thereafter I will present live here the presentation of the biodiversity index, and I hope I'll be able to convince you that this is something useful and we can all use it. So give me a second just to switch everything. So it stop share, and now share again. Where is it?
Hi there and good morning. I'm sorry I can't be with you right now. My name is Asaf Levy, and if you would look at my resume, you would not believe I would be speaking in a conference like this. I graduated computer science and been working on the high-tech industry for a few decades. I've established several companies, sold one of them. One of them I took public in London Stock Exchange. So yeah, I played the game and I played good. But 3 years ago, I saw this image by photographer Ami Vital, and it changed my life. And if this is the first time you see this image, it might change yours as well. These are, ladies and gentlemen, the last living, breathing moments of an entire species. Yes, the rhino in the picture is the last northern white rhino male. If you'd never seen one in nature, you never will. I remember seeing this question and seeing this photo story, and the question occurred to me: how many other last male there are? How many other species are about to go extinct? I tried to find the answer for this, and I started researching and realized information is widely scattered, unreliable, unverified, and outdated. Not only that, one more thing I found is that lack of easy to consume, easy to understand data, the whole cause of biodiversity loss and wildlife extinction is widely ignored and overlooked by mainstream media and social networks. So I did what I always do when I run into a problem. I created a website. Right now, we have approximately 3,000 species mapped per country and per conservation status when we have this information. I know it sounds a lot, but the real magic is to make it accessible, visual, attractive, and so easy to understand that even a CEO can use it. Let's see together where extension is standing right now as we speak. 13% of birds species are threatened. 21% of reptiles, mammals, 26, sharks and rays, 37%. Amphibians are dependent on clean, fresh water bodies. 41% of them are on the brink of extinction. Coral reefs are the jungle of the ocean, and 70% of them are threatened. Once they're gone, the whole ecosystem collapses. Yeah, it looks grim, I know. And don't expect mainstream media and social media influencers to talk about it when even governments and decision makers find it hard to access, evaluate, and present this information. So, with that in mind, I've established the website biodb.com. Um, Let me show you how you can use it. I will focus on two elements. One, taxonomy, drill down taxonomy. And the second is distribution and conservation. I will share now the website. Do you see it? Cool. So this is BioDB. Right now we are on the animal kingdom, in which we have several classes, mammals, birds, and so on and so forth. Let us go to the mammals, to our class. Now, on the class level, we see the different orders. We have the rodents, the bats, carnivores, and so on. Approximately 30 orders in the class of the mammals. Let's continue onward. The carnivores. We are now on order carnivores. We see the different families divided to like cats, mongooses, hyenas, and dog-like, like dogs, skunks, bears, and so on. Onward. Let's go to family cats. On family cats, we now see the genera divided to small cats and big cats. Let us visit genus Panthera, the panthers. Now we're on the species level. There are 5 species here on this genera, on genus, sorry. Tiger with less than 4,000 in nature. In other words, 96% decline over a century. So tiger, endangered, lion, vulnerable, leopard, vulnerable, snow leopard, vulnerable with less than 7,000 in nature, widely scattered, and the jaguar, near threatened. This is the taxonomy drill down. Did you like it? Let's go to the tiger and see how he's doing these days. Right, so here is the list of all the countries in which tiger occurs or occurred. All those countries on brown, like Afghanistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan, are countries from which tiger are now extinct. Here in the 1960s, here in the 70s, here in the 1950s, correspondingly. So you see Only by looking at it, you can understand the magnitude of the problem. There is also a corresponding map to it. Let's refresh it. Which, of course, I cannot show right now. Yeah, you'll have to excuse me and believe me. Go to the website and see yourself. So this is the website. Let's look up for another species. Something from Brazil, our host, an anteater, for example. It is merely vulnerable. And here again, you can see all the countries in which it occurred. In Brazil, possibly extinct, by the way. I still cannot see the map. You'll have to believe me again. Okay, now I'll be switching back to my presentation. So, with the data in place, what I've just showed you, let's see how any of you can hack, so to speak, the attention of social media and mainstream media. In other words, how do we spread the word? How do we make media publishers cover the story of extinction? How do we interest the uninterested? I want to show you how we created a gimmick and how you can use it as well. Did you know that today, November 19th, is World Anteater Day? Not only that, almost every week there's an awareness day. For example, in 10 days, we have the Jaguar Awareness Day. So, I want to present a question to you. Imagine you're approaching a journalist out of the blue and talk to her about covering the story of the vulnerable anteaters. That would be quite abstract and irrelevant, right? Why now? It's not going to work. But pay attention to this. It's a whole different story if you approach a journalist, an editor, or a blogger on the specific awareness day. For example, today is the World Anteater Day. And once you have their interest, you can present them with full set of data and them realizing they can write a great piece for their audience. So, is this really working? Yes, it is. Leveraging Awareness Day, we managed to get some 500 articles, otherwise would not exist, covering the topic of these animals. I will show you a few examples. This is the anteater, the tiger, orangutan, sea turtles, rhinos, tapir, red panda, hippo. All of them have Awareness Day. Cheetah, gorilla, monkeys, jaguar, and so on and so forth. In total, we've leveraged 40 different awareness days to get the story out. Think of it like the exposure you're getting on Facebook on your birthday, right? And this naturally, so to speak, leads us to the next huge topic of social networks. It's impossible to underestimate how important social networks are. They are unimaginably influential. I mean, for me personally, TikTok is not my natural habitat. However, we believe that you should meet your audience where they are right now and not where you ideally would like them to be. Um, this is our TikTok account. You have the QR code. You're more than welcome to join more than 100,000 followers we have on TikTok, getting information about conservation and wildlife extinction. So, what's next? After we got the awareness and see how we spread the word, it's the next step is informed decision making about allocation and prioritizing resources. Let's move on to the main course of this whole lecture, the Nature Conservation Index. It all started when I was in Thailand traveling. My daughter asked me, how much population there is in Thailand? Where is it ranked in that regard in the world? I could easily find this information. And we also checked how big is it in terms of size, economy, democracy, military strength. Where is it ranked among other nations? I could find easily all this information. But I would like to ask you something. When I wanted to know how good Thailand is protecting its nature, its ecosystems, could I find it? By now, you probably realized no, we could not. I remember something I learned on my high tech years is what you cannot measure, you cannot manage. And I realized that someone has to do it. So I partnered with my good friend, Professor Yaron Ziv, who will be speaking very soon, and we have established the world's first nature protection index, nature conservation index. And what we want to give you today is a tool to make better decisions, better advocacy, more informed arguments leading to actions towards nature conservation in your country, in your region, in the entire world. It would be your ultimate reference for that. Yaron will soon discuss and elaborate about our Nature Conservation Index, and I want to wrap up my part with some of the media coverage we got for it. How did we find relevancy? This time, no awareness day is here, right? So the relevancy is per country because each and every country is in this index, and it was big news in most of these countries. Here are just a few examples of the 300 um, publications we got for it. Soon we're gonna uh, launch 2025 version, and I don't have, the opportunity to be here with you in Brazil, but I was told that there are some serious people in the crowd. So really, I'm sure you can make serious good contribution to the website. It is non-profit, of course, in terms of data, coverage, research, and even adding your favorite animal if it's not already there. In other words, let's do business together. We're hoping you're taking with you some new ideas as for how to be relevant for the media, for mainstream media, for social media. And I would like to thank you. I am Asaf, and I'm honored to invite my friend and colleague, Yaron. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Asaf. Let me stop this one and let me share now my own presentation. Now I need to find it, of course. Um, okay, this is my presentation, and I would like again thank Asaf. Um, it's amazing how someone who is an high-tech expert decides to dedicate his life to conserve biodiversity. And the skills that he has, I don't have. No one trained me as a biologist to know how to convince people, like marketing, to get aware of extinction of species on Earth. And his publications and the website, which is very, very visual, and I highly recommend each of you just to go to BioDB and share with the family and friends and colleagues uh, how we can be aware of what is going on in terms of conservation. And the idea is that when you have this one, you can move on. And another thing that I would like to tell the experts, basically what Asaf is doing in the BioDB, he is collecting data from different other different websites like the WWF, IUCN, IPCC, and all of them, and he accumulate them together in a way that it is not um, available anywhere else. So actually BioDB, not only that it is visual and increase awareness, it provides now information when you look at the maps that does not exist anywhere else about the country-based population size of different species. Some of them are going to become extinct if we don't do anything. So I really admire Asaf and thank him for getting us into his enthusiasm. About the nature, the index itself. So let me tell you about the index. Basically, the index is made by, established by Asaf, of course. He initiated and challenged us. Alex Slovenko from Australia, Uri Roll from Ben Gurion University, Professor Uri Roll, Professor Shai Meiri from Tel Aviv University. Both Uri and Shai are experts in biodiversity worldwide. They have papers in Nature and Science, and they're really leading in this field, and myself, and I'm a biodiversity landscape ecologist. So here is about this index, and I'm going to be, I hope, very efficient in presenting it. But let's start with some basic lines. We all know that climate change and biodiversity loss are major environmental crises. I guess this is one of the reasons we're sitting here today. Conservation and conserving biodiversity is a definitely global priority and maybe need to get much more attention given what is going on. And it needs collaboration between different countries and international bodies. However, the most important issue, this is something I would like to emphasize. When we talk about biodiversity, biodiversity is nested within each country responsibility. You know, if we talk about the huge biodiversity of the Amazon forest, it is the Brazil responsibility, not anyone else. You can't go and do something instead of Brazil. They own that it's, you know, it's a country with all its rights. So countries must take responsibility. We need to look at the country and put a mirror and say, you know, this is your biodiversity. You act now. And if we really want to do that, as Asaf say, when you know that you need something, you have to do something about it. So we decided to have this country-based measure, a unified index that takes into account a lot of complicated variables in order to create the biodiversity index, which is country-based. Now, like what Asaf said, if you are now a reporter in the Newsweek, Washington Post, it doesn't matter what journal, and you want to describe something about a political situation in a country, you go to the democracy index. There is one like that, or corruption index, or something else. When we looked at the website, there is not a single country-based conservation index. Someone has to do that, and we decided to do that. And I think this is why it is so important. So the Nature Conservation Index evaluates a country's effectiveness of 180 countries. We actually have 16 more countries right now, but 180 countries are on most of the list of the WWF, IUCN, and many others. So we actually stick to what is well known in other websites and databases of well-organized bodies in the world. Now the idea is, and this is the conceptual rationale about it, that it looks at two categories. First, what a country biodiversity value is. What does a country have? What it has. For example, a country like Brazil has huge responsibility because it has very high biodiversity richness, right? So it has the responsibility. So this is one category. The other category is what is the country's capacity and commitment to biodiversity protection. In other words, what it does. So you have two categories, and what we want to do and what we did for this index is to overlap and get an index that takes into account the biodiversity responsibility and what the commitment and the actions taken by this country. And this is what giving us the index. It's quite complicated. It is based on 4 pillars, kind of list of variables. Land management and threats to biodiversity reflect the first category, what a country has. The capacity and governance and future trends reflects what a country does, okay? And we put them together in one, as I said, quite complicated index. The most important issue that I would like to make here, guys, and please share it with your colleagues, we are only using databases and information taken from well-recognized, well-accepted databases. We're not using, like, if we find a high school student who wrote something in a distinct country, we're not using website. We're only using databases from UN-related, World Bank-related, WWF-related data sets, okay? So we are not playing games with all kind of hidden or unreliable information, okay? That was very, very important for us. I will go very briefly through the different variables. This is the first pillar. So we have the coverage of terrestrial protected areas, representativeness of terrestrial protected areas. All this information is available for each country in well-recognized websites. Connectedness of terrestrial landscapes, of course, this reflects fragmentation effects. It has a lot of biology and ecology behind each of these variables. Coverage of marine protected areas, extent of converted land, sustainable practices in nitrogen use, so use of fertilizers and chemicals. This is really important for biodiversity. Sustainable practices in pesticide use. I guess I don't have to convince you that using too much pesticide is not very good for biodiversity, and we need to find a way to do it with responsibility. The second pillar, threats to biodiversity. These are direct variables to biodiversity, proportion of terrestrial threatened species, coverage of terrestrial species by protected areas, proportion of marine threatened species. This is for the countries that also have some accessibility to ocean or to water, okay? Not all the countries, but those that have this and they have a border with an ocean or a sea, of course we need to take into account also the marine biodiversity. We do not ignore that. Coverage of marine species by protected areas, terrestrial species with declining populations. I guess I don't have to explain this one. Marine species with declining populations, again, we should not ignore the marine ecosystem when a country has a sea, state of fisheries within exclusive economic zones. I mean, I look at this variable, you say, how come you have this information? Yes, this information exists. Not only that it exists, it is available on very well-known websites and organization information, fisheries pressure in the high seas, and pressures from invasive species. You know, this is the 9th one, but not the least important. You know, invasive species is a big issue with respect to biodiversity conservation, and the information is available actually from, we comprised information from different websites, well organized to get this measure. Capacity and governance, now we go, okay, on looking at each country, what do you do in order to conserve? You have the biodiversity, now let's see what you do. And it's country-based, so the total management cost as percentage of GDP You'll see variable after variable will make sense to you with respect to the responsibility of the country, engagement with conservation issues, strength of conservation legislation, which is really, really important, ratification and implementation of the Convention of Biodiversity. We are here now at the Convention of Climate Change, but as you know, the UN defined two other conventions, one of them an important one on biodiversity with all the regulations and agreements. So we look at that, given the country's implementation, the ratification and implementation of the CITES, another very famous agreement. Political stability, we assume that when a country does not have a political stability, its ability and maybe desire to conserve biodiversity is low. It's an assumption, but I guess it makes sense, right? Okay? And corruption control, countries with high corruption do not conserve their species appropriately, okay? You smile because you know what I'm talking about. So that variable definitely makes sense, right? And we need to look at all of this to get something which is more reliable with respect to the index. Government effectiveness and democracy levels. Of course, there are some assumptions here too. We can argue about it, we can change it. Let's talk about it in a second, but that's part of the variables. As you can see, we did not ignore many important issues. The future trends, I'll do it fast, although it is very complex, more maybe the other ones, because this is based on the 58 environmental and conservation indices of the famous Yale's Environmental Performance Index. So the future trends by itself is a compromise of 58 other indices. So you can see how much complexity and how much efforts we'll put in this index. Okay, so it reflects the future environmental changes that may critically affect biodiversity, either directly or indirectly, okay? And then, again, I guess no one can argue that Yale is a quite respected and recognized university with respect to its knowledge and science. Okay, some remarks. First of all, like any other index, the Nature Conservation Index is subjective and depends on the variables and formulation used. You may not agree with me. You can say that you dislike one thing, like more another thing. It's okay. Once you come with your critics, we will change it. It's okay. It's the beginning, okay? We want it to get improved, and this will be achieved only if we get people's opinion, and it's okay, like any other index. It is currently unbiased. We don't say, okay, we prefer this variable over that one, so we multiply it by 10. No, at this point, I'm not sure this is correct. I'm not sure it's correct. Maybe we're wrong. But we let all variables the same weight in the index currently. Again, you think differently, come forward, tell us, and we will improve it, okay? We want to do it together with you. We want to do it together with leading organizations in the world. It's calculating the same way for any other country. So if a representative of a country tells me, you know, you don't like us, so you put us 100, I don't know, something. I said, just a second, that's not the case. This is not how we work. We're not playing games. We use the same protocol, and it is done automatically. We don't touch it. We don't change the values, okay? So what we get, we get. The data for the variables are sourced from well-accepted and recognized, like I said before, website, and it's not by chance that I keep saying it over and over again, because I want you to make sure that this is a reliable one. And the detailed information and scores, I can give you all the information. We are working now on some articles about this one. Here is an example. If you open, and I highly recommend and encourage you to open BioDB and find in the menu NCI 2024. These are, you'll see that quite immediately on the left, the 10 most successful or better countries in terms of conservation. And I actually went a few days ago to the Luxembourg pavilion, and I congratulated them on being the first on the list, okay? And unfortunately, to the right are the ones, the 10 last ones on the list. And if you press the button, see all countries, in the website you'll get all the information. I'll show you some examples, how much information, how clear and how transparency is, okay? It is very transparent. Unfortunately, my own country is not doing very well, and I really hope that this will be changed. And one of the reasons probably is because that some of the amazing things that are done in Israel are not reflected in the website. So actually, be aware to the fact that the index has two purposes. One, to show the world and the decision makers, look at each country's responsibility. At the same time, to show the country, look again at the data, what the UN and other bodies know about you. And if you dislike it because the information is not correct, go and talk to them. Increase the interaction with these bodies. My guess Israel is much higher on the list. It's much better in conservation. It only reflected by the information available for everyone. So this is the map. Pretty soon it will be very interactive, so you'll touch a country and you'll get the information. And let me give you quite briefly an example how amazing, and I'm not giving me a good score, I'm giving Asaf a good score, okay? He did it. How amazingly with respect to the visual and the share of a lot of information. So I decided to look at United Kingdom as an example. You open, like here, you press United Kingdom, it is ranked 5th on the list, and you get information about the ecosystem, some words, so every kid can enjoy it, and it's wonderful. You see the overall score and the rank. Then you go to another table, and it gives you each of the variables score and rank of each of them. We don't hide the information. Everything is transparent, okay? And it is very, very visual. Of course, it has biodiversity information, and also you can see that it subdivides the different scores and ranks to different animal groups. So you can see how each country does with respect to a different group. And this is very, very detailed. It is, as I said before, and Asaf said, it's visual, it's nice to show to kids. So you have animals that represent each country, and once you press, it goes back to BioDB and gives you all the information. So you see how much information you have in these birds, very visual, very nice for even little kids. And you can take and talk to little kids and get their awareness when they are still young, okay, and not destroyed when they're getting reptiles, and of course amphibians, and there are the national animals of each country. There are additional materials. Actually, I have a brochure here if you want. Look at the website and get a lot of information and spread the word, please. Final notes before I finish. It addresses the lack of conservation metrics by measuring countries' commitment and responsibility towards biodiversity conservation. It provides a reflection of how each country performs, as I said before, and it should allow a country to understand where it should change and improve. Offers valuable data to government, international organization, and the UN regarding the commitments of each country to biodiversity conservation. And of course, it enables stakeholders to call for action, even penalty in some cases. I don't know, it depends on what they want to do. And as I said before, and I'll add again, it shows a country how much information is known about its work. So with this, I would like to thank you very much. Again, another wonderful picture from the BioDB website. And so thank you for listening. And please, please, it comes from, it doesn't, we put our own resources. It's not a company. It's university professors and a staff who does it voluntarily. We do it because we are quite selfish. We think about our kids. So we want to have a better world. Thank you very much. So if you have any question, I'm here for you. Okay. If you have any question, I'm here. Okay. Sorry? Okay. At this point, there are no plans, but okay. There are not plans on the website itself. Plans will be coming because it's only the beginning. Currently, there are no plans. The index itself looks at biodiversity as a whole, including plants, the index. But in the BioDB website, it's only animal at the moment. If you give us a good call or a good indication, we'll move on. But basically, the idea is to cover all species diversity, and I hope it will be with some of the organizations.
Yaron, you mentioned that the index, or Asaf mentioned, I don't remember, it measures what the country has and what it does. Now I noticed that the first and second place, for example, are Luxembourg and okay, so the first and second are Luxembourg and Estonia. Now, I've never heard of people going for a safari in Luxembourg or for a big trip to Estonia. So I guess that they don't have much biodiversity compared to Brazil, for example, and then they don't have to do very much. So my question is how do you incorporate into the index these considerations, you know, how to compare countries of different size and different richness of biodiversity?
Thank you very much. It's a wonderful question. It's actually an excellent question. You know what's the difference? An excellent question is the presenter has a good, I think, answer to reply. So it's an excellent one because we're highly aware of that. You're not the only one, but it's very nice that you asked that. Explicitly, or you know what, implicitly, you're absolutely correct, and I'm not sure we want to correct it. In other words, Brazil will have to work harder in order to get to Luxembourg's rank. In other words, we don't want to standardize it at this point. We think maybe it's not, you know, fair for the country, but it's not about fairity, about being fair. It's about the right thing to do. And Brazil, for example, or Uganda, or I can think about other very rich countries in biodiversity, with species diversity and so on, they have more responsibility implicitly because this is how the index is established and it's done. So yeah, look, for Luxembourg, it's much easier to be the ranked first. You're right, absolutely, because it has fewer species and it's a small country with more open spaces, so it has an advantage. But by standardizing, actually, we are letting some countries go away from responsibility. So it's a good issue. We need to discuss it more, but we are aware of that, and we implicitly say that countries with high biodiversity have more responsibility. And, and you know, we can think about it more, but I think it makes sense in a way. You know, it's not a magic, you know, something from above. You know, it's we as human beings needs to decide how we want to do that. Maybe with some discussion with WWF and other organizations, we can reshape it in a better way. Currently, we stick to this assumption. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And please share it with anyone you can. Have a great day.